Welcome to Whisperwood Stories. Today, we read part 2 of last week's story from Averagedropout. Let's begin. My wife keeps following me, but I don't think it's her anymore. Part 2. Hey guys. I just wanted to thank everyone for their suggestions. Though that doesn't mean what you're all saying isn't horrifying to think about. My wife can't possibly be dead. If just last week everything was fine. Even her car is there. I've drove the car before. I don't know about her being a demon, but I'll try and see what happens. In case you're all wondering, she's behind me still, tailing me like a lost child clings to an adult for dear life. She's been breathing down my ear, and even when I sleep in bed, she still stares at me. She waits until I turn so that she can. That's my assumption, at least. I've seen a suggestion about holy water, and that she might be a demon. So I went to church this morning and begged a priest for help, to which he blessed me, but she still continued staring and watching, tailing behind my back. I've begged her to stop, and even put my back against a wall. When she's not able to go behind me, she stands directly in front of me. I'm going to tell you all right now that I agree that this thing is not my wife. Her grin was so big, it went from ear to ear. Her mouth was drooling, clearly with excitement with the fear she has caused me. Her skin was sweaty, almost looked pasty. She looked as though she is suffering from malnourishment. She's eaten, at least. I think she has, though I've never actually seen her eat since she's always directly behind me. Even when I'm sitting on the couch, she stands behind it to loom over me. I've tried inviting my friend over with his wife. Maybe they'd see what I mean. They'll see how sick she is. When they came, I could tell that they too would notice something was off. There she was, breathing down my neck, directly behind me. Hey, Isabella. James? I smiled wryly, answering Joseph's wife's greeting, and showing that there are clearly signs of issues. So what's for dinner? I told them I ordered takeout, and that it was going to be a bit. They were still anxious about even stepping foot in the house. Isabella, come on, greet them. Suddenly, she started putting on a show. I'm so sorry. I'm a little sick. I don't want to get too close. I was mortified by the way this thing imitated my wife to perfection. I don't want to risk you guys getting sickly, but I'm sure James can handle it. They laughed while I stared at Isabella, again, mortified by this thing. During dinner, there Isabella still sat, behind me, eating, watching. Joseph and his wife could not see her staring at me. They still assured me she was keeping her distance, and when we watched a movie on the couch, her excitement came out, like she was struggling to breathe. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream and tell them to help me, but they wouldn't believe me. When they left, the staring and the following intensified. She would pretend to walk away and scare me. She would poke me and somehow no longer be in my peripheral vision. I constantly think she's behind me, even in public. I have to keep asking strangers on the street if anyone's behind me. They always give me those pity looks and assure me no one is behind me. Probably think I'm on drugs or something. I would think so too. At some point, she has stopped going to work to continuously tail me. I decided to call her workplace, and they told me she hadn't been at work for months. They figured she was on vacation because that's what she last discussed with them. And what they checked is that she was, and they hadn't even realized her vacation time was up. My wife never misses work. She was always on time. This also throws everyone's theory that she's not real, or that she was imaginary. She used to be normal. I don't know what's happening to her. I'm only just realizing that she must have lied about having work, where she's been going. Now, I can't follow her because she's always following me. Isabella, please, I want to talk. You're scaring me. I cried while we were eating. Or at least, while I was eating. Please, if it's a prank, I'll forgive you. Just please talk to me. But instead, she went silent. And I mean dead silent. I almost felt relieved. The only way to see if she had stopped tailing me was to put my back against the wall, so I did. Very slowly, knowing she was going to shuffle right in front of me. I was cautious this time. And when my back was against the wall, she wasn't there anymore. She didn't appear in front of me. Was she gone? Had she finally quit it? Was she finally understanding? Unsettled, I look around, making sure she really had stopped, but she wasn't around. I was so relieved, I started to cry. I didn't feel like I was being watched anymore. I had not seen her since, but I didn't want to move from my back against the wall. I even slept soundly on the floor. I finally got real sleep without feeling like I was going to die. I was so relieved the next day, I took a chance of moving away to go to the bathroom. And when I had finished, I put my back against the wall, and she wasn't there. I wanted to cry again. Instead, I hurried to get dressed and run out of the house, taking the car keys with me and driving away as far as I could. I saw her. She was waving, drooling, smiling, and she had a knife in her hand. My heart dropped, realizing what would have happened if I had stayed. I ended up calling the cops and giving them the address to my old home, but they hadn't found her. However, they did find traces of blood and what might have been a dead animal. It was fresh, so they did everything as quickly as possible. I'm currently at my brother's, about 4 states away from Isabella. I was fine, and sleeping amazingly for a few nights, until I had the feeling that once again, Isabella was right behind me. I got up from bed and saw that the window to my bedroom was open, and my heart sank. I put my back against the wall, and there came her shuffling. And she was in front of me. She made an excited laughter, a very weird one that a child might make when they were excited, like she was sucking in her breath and struggling to breathe. And there, she had the knife in her hand. I stood, quiet, holding my breath, hoping she wouldn't do anything irrational. Isabella, let's put the knife down. Her excitement and hitched breathing only somehow got louder. A knock came at the door, which was clearly my brother coming in to check in on me. Isabella's head whipped to the door. She scattered behind it. She put the knife against her lips, signaling me to stay quiet. My brother walks in. Jesus Christ, bro. He walks to me slowly, and there Isabella was, directly behind him. You look like you've seen a ghost. I pointed behind him, trembling, but when he turned, she swiftly followed his lead. But she exposed herself when she couldn't contain her excitement anymore. This time, she screeched and my brother stumbled back against the wall. And there Isabella was, once again. Now I'm in the middle of the room. Isabella, let him go, okay? You can tail me again, you can follow me, just leave Theo alone. She stared at me, almost waiting, watching me step forward, and then darting behind me. Then came back that very heavy feeling of being watched and followed. My brother darted out of the room, calling the police, I assumed. I closed the door, put my back against it. She shuffled in front of me. "Boo," she said quietly, charging at me with the knife. I dodged, and the knife got stuck in the door. I grab her, pinning her against the wall. My brother quickly comes back. "The cops are on their way." She began thrashing and screaming, biting like a rabid animal. We were like this for about 10 more minutes, me trying to yell some sense into her, but she didn't comply. She continued to act the way she did until the cops apprehended her. I was so relieved, I cried for hours after Isabella was arrested. She was served with papers, and she would be in court. I would be there virtually. I know I would hear her excitement. Just thinking about it was horrifying. I ended up moving in with my brother, and we're going to live together for a while. I hadn't heard anything since Isabella had been held in a holding cell. She was also sent to seek for help because she was mentally not okay. For obvious reasons, my lawyer told me she would most likely be sentenced to life in prison. Everything was fine, and I was finally able to move on from the trauma. I sought out a therapist myself, as you guys told me to do. Sometimes, I still feel like she's behind me. I still ask people if there's anyone behind me, and I always sleep with my back against the wall. I got a call from an unknown number. I picked up, not really worried. That was, until I heard Isabella's slight excitement over the phone and weird breathing. "Look behind you." Thank you for listening to Whisperwood Stories. If you enjoyed, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down below. Do you have a story that you'd like me to read here? Consider commenting or sending it to whisperwoodsubmissions@gmail.com. The story in this video was read with the author's permission. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to check out the user and Reddit posts. Don't let the shadows get too close.